Most of us know how to use a computer. Computer make our life easier and colorful. But not many of us know how to assemble a PC or CPUs. Actually, it is not difficult to assemble a PC once you know how to do it. First, you need to identify the main components on the motherboard such as CPU socket, RAM slot, IDE and others. The way for us to know the type of a motherboard is by referring to the manual given or through the internet if needed. This motherboard, for example, uses a CPU LGA 775 socket and DDR RAM slot. There are a few ports at the side of the MSI motherboard. They are such as 2 PS2 ports, serial ports, VGA ports, and LPT ports. They also have a few USB ports, LANs, and audio jack. This is RAM or random access memory. As shown now, it is a DDR1 RAM with the capacity of 512 MB. The bigger RAM size, the faster performance of the computer will be. This is a microprocessor or CPU, and it is Intel Pentium 4 with 2.66 GHz, 1 MB cache, and 533 frontside bus or FSB. This heatsink is for a 775 socket which has 4 legs at the bottom, and it will be slotted in to the motherboard later. This is a fan for a CPU that will be assembled with the previous heatsink. This hard disk has a circuit board at the bottom. At the side of the hard disk, there has an IDE and power connector. I think many of us know what it is. Yes, this is a floppy disk drive, and it also have a FDD and power connector behind it. This is a CD drive, but today most of the latest computer now using DVD drive as a standard and also using SATA as a connector. But like this one, it using an IDE connector. For your information, data transfer using SATA connector is better than IDE. Okay, now this is a power supply. This power supply have 2 power connectors at behind. The most important about power supply is about their wattage. For example, Pentium 4 processor need at least 400 watts to make the system run smoothly. Usually, you can get information about power supply from the sticker that stick onto it. Now, I want to show you about an IDE cable, which has a red stripe at the side of the cable. This red stripe on the cable should be used to align pin 1 of the IDE device. It looks like an IDE cable, but this FDD cable can be identified by its twisted cable, which has a connector to be used to connect a floppy drive. This is an input-output shield. The input-output shield must be compatible with the motherboard, and usually all new motherboards come with their own input-output shield. Here I will show you how to install an input-output shield to a chassis. This input-output shield must be installed properly at the back of the chassis, and please make sure it is well fixed. All of this must be done carefully because this shield is very sharp and can hurt your fingers. This is what we call it a screw nut, and we will use it to install motherboard. This motherboard need at least 6 screw nuts to be tightened to the plate. This screw nut will act like a stand for motherboard to make sure it didn't touch the chassis. If the chassis touched the motherboard, short circuit will be occurred and may damage the motherboard. Motherboard installation is relatively easy, but we must follow all the instructions carefully. First, look at the CPU socket. It has three main parts such as load lever, retention tab, and load plate. To open it, press load lever with your thumb and move it to the left as shown here. Lift the load plate with your thumb and forefinger to 100 degrees. Now, position the CPU over the socket, ensuring that the gold triangle is on the bottom left corner of the socket, then fit the socket alignment key into the CPU notch. Then, close the load plate and push the load lever until it snaps into the retention tab. Actually, this heatsink comes with two different parts: the heatsink and the fan. Place the heatsink on top of the installed CPU, ensuring that the four fasteners match the holes on the motherboard. Push down two fasteners at a time to secure the heatsink and fan installed correctly. Please make sure the fan cable connected to the power connector. If you forget to connect it, hardware monitoring errors will occur. Now, by using a suitable screw, place 6 screws into the holes indicated by circle to secure the motherboard to the chassis. Before installing a memory, press the retaining clip outwards to unlock a memory socket. The memory must be aligned to the socket, and make sure the notch on the memory match the memory slot key on the motherboard. Firmly insert the memory into the socket until the retaining clip snaps back in place and the memory is properly seated. To example power supply, we must position the power supply unit at the back of the chassis, and after that fasten the power supply to the chassis with 4 screws. For CD drive installation, we must slide the CD drive into a chassis from the front of the chassis until the hole on the CD drive are meshed with mounting holes on chassis. Tighten it with a screwdriver. Maybe this is the most critical parts in motherboard installation process. If needed, we must refer to the motherboard manual to identify which pin belong to power LED, hard disk LED, ATX power button, and reset button. If you lost the manual book, don't worry, every pin has their own signs, and for this mainboard, it looks like this. And if you confused, please ask your lecturer to confirm. The front connector will look like this. For FDD installation of floppy disk drive, we must put FDD drive to the FDD bay at the front panel. After that, screw it down. Then, put the hard disk into any hard disk bay on chassis, then tighten it down with screw. Usually I use 2 screws to tighten the hard disk. This is an IDE cable. The IDE cable will be marked down with one side with a red or black stripe. This denotes pin 1. Match this with the pin 1 indicator on the back of the hard disk drive or any devices that use IDE connector. Okay, now we will show you how to connect a power supply to a motherboard and internal drive. This is power connector for an internal drive, while these are the 24 pin and 4 pin 88 power supply that are both will be connected to a motherboard. Okay. After all the devices connected with power connector, please check all the connection again. If nothing wrong, close the chassis cover. And of course, I hope you know how to connect mouse, keyboard and monitor to a CPU. After all input and output devices were connected, Switch on the power button. Look at the mother screens and hit delete key to enter BIOS or basic input-output system. In BIOS, you can monitor all the hardware. Here we go. Congratulations! Our CPU just worked fine. Okay, we will see again in the next topic about installing an operating system.